Hey everybody! Today we're going to be doing a special 151 subscriber video because I just got to 151 subs at the time of this being released. Not at the time of me recording, I'm at 149. But either way, so we're going to rank all 151 Pokemon from Gen 1. And I'm sure that this is going to be a controversial video because everyone's very opinionated about what their favorite Pokemon is. Originally I was going to make it so that I went and had a Pokemon and then moved it onto a tier list. And then I started making the sprites for all of the Pokemon, which I got from the Gen 1 game. And yeah, there's way too many sprites. So either ways, instead what I did was I did a merge sort. I put all these things into a list and then did a merge sort until I was able to come up with my favorite list and in complete order. I think it was 7,000 comparisons. It was ridiculous, whatever it was. So what we're gonna end up doing is go through these. So my least favorite Pokemon is Hitmonlee, apparently, which isn't very much of a surprise. But I mean, if you ask me directly, do I like Hitmonlee? I'd say, yeah, Hitmonlee's pretty cool. But it turns out that if I compare it to any other Pokemon, it's my least favorite. So next we got Primeape and Mankey. And not surprised to me that these are 150 and 149. They're just kind of monkeys and I'm just eh. So next we have Mr. Mime, who's just a creep. Golduck is also just creepy Psyduck. Nidoking's pretty chill, honestly, but kind of uninteresting. Persian, Golduck, they have the same thing in common, which is that they have a cool devolved version and then they evolved into something bad. And if I get me upset that they evolved into something so terrible, they often will go down in the list. Next we got Kingler, just a menacing crab. Tentacruel, creepy jellyfish. Pharaoh is just annoying. I hated seeing it in the wild in Pokemon Red. Next we have Magmar, which I don't think that I ever got. I think that in Pokemon Red you had an Electabuzz. And so this is down here just because honestly it just never really crossed my mind. Nidorinos, whatever. Seaking, worse Goldeen. Golbat, it's really funny. Golbat I think was one of the Pokemon that I originally beat the Elite Four with because it knew Fly. And I called that Pokemon Poop. Before this video, I prepped by looking at my old Red Pokemon file save. And I'm surprised that it still exists. Farfetch'd, I honestly really like Farfetch'd, but in Gen 1, the fact that you couldn't tell that it was holding a leak because it was brown instead of green, it kind of put me down on it. Sandslash, I'm surprised isn't higher up on the list, but I guess it's because I like Sandshrew more. Next is Victory Bell. Victory Bell is honestly just the same as the other two, but worse in the line. Then we have Pidgeot, which is kind of the same thing. I actually love pigeons, but this is just a big bird instead of a pigeon at this point. Next we have Raticate, which is scary rat. Honestly, could have given more points because it's of the theory where Raticate dies and that's what makes your rival not happy. But then we got Nidoqueen, Arbok, Big Snake, Jinx. My Jinx in my Pokemon Red file was named Lola. Next we have Pidgeotto, which is closer to just a regular pigeon, so I like it a lot more than Pidgeot. Raichu, bad Pikachu, down. Tauros is funny because I learned recently that there's a speedrun in which you have to catch 29 Tauruses, but I barely could catch one Tauros in the Safari Zone. I thought it was the most annoying thing in the world. Nidoran male, all the Nidoran series, they're kind of just the most generic things. I'm somewhat surprised Hitmonchan is this high up in the list because of the fact that it's kind of similar to Hitmonlee. But I guess that I just like Hitmonchan a lot more. I guess I'm more about the punches than the kicky kicks, but I don't really like fighting types in general. Pinsir, kind of just a cool Pokemon, sits on its own. Sparrow, just as annoying as Pharaoh, but honestly, slightly better. I don't know. I'm surprised this isn't further down on the list. Then we have Starmie, who's the cute gem Pokemon. Parasect. Both of these I think are really cute, but their devolved versions are so much better that I put them low down on the list. Same with Magneton, actually. Now we have Sandshrew, who I'm surprised isn't higher up because shrews are the closest living relatives, or one of the closest living relatives to hedgehogs, which are one of my favorite animals, and I talk about them too much. But next we have Electabuzz and Beedrill. Beedrill, honestly, I used to hate Beedrill, but because of the Dorkly series where Beedrill becomes a gang boss, I love Beedrill now. Next we have Seadra, who's very pretty, but not as pretty as Horsea. Seal is one of the few times where the devolved version is below the evolved version. Ninetales, I know that people go crazy for Ninetales, but I didn't think it was that cool. Then we have Metapod. Metapod's cool. I love Metapod because of how useless it is. Nidorina is kind of just cute. And then we have Dugong. Yeah, Dugong's just a better version of Seal, let's be honest. It's cuter, you could give it a hug. Then we have Dodrio. I love the bird, the double-headed bird and triple-headed bird. All the things with multiple heads. Look at this. Executor, And then we have Kakuna, the most useless of all Pokemon. I love Kakuna. Oh. And then we have Goldeen, Krabby, just generic fishes. Electrode is pretty cool because it just, you know, I think it uses Explosion instead of Self-Destruct, which I think is cool. Then we have Rapidash, just worse version of Ponyta. Next we have Weezing, which just honestly, I don't know, Team Rocket vibes, whatever. Rhyhorn, I really like Rhyhorn. It was one of my favorite ground type Pokemon. I think it's a ground type. Then we have Cloyster, and I remember Cloyster being the most annoying Pokemon in the world because during the Elite Four, I think it would just use Wrap over and over and over again on my Pokemon, and it was just so annoying, and I just like hated it. But it was memorable, and so it gets high up on the list. Then we have Weepinbell, Rhydon, same thing with Rhyhorn. Rhydon just honestly just a little bit nicer. I'd rather have a Rhydon than a Rhyhorn. Then we have Meowth. Hello there, it's me, Meowth. Graveler. This is the first of the 6 Pokemon, like the Machop line and the Geodude line, which I associate together in my head. And the reason why Graveler is the lowest of them is because of the fact that I was so disappointed I couldn't get a Golem because I couldn't trade with anyone. Then we have Scyther, which was definitely the coolest Pokemon in the Safari Zone. Arcanine, people go crazy for Arcanine, but I don't know, it's like a big dog. Then we have Aerodactyl, the first of the fossil Pokemon. I love the fossil Pokemon, but this is definitely the weakest of them, although its skeleton form looks really cool. Nidoran Fem, honestly, just a cutie. Look at that little face. How can you not like Nidoran Fem? Then we have Kangaskhan, which gets so high mainly because of the fact that I associate it with Cubone. Oh, by the way, look, I'm wearing a Cubone shirt. She's being haunted by some ghost Pokemons. And yeah, and so because of the theories that that's a Cubone inside her lap right there, I like Kangaskhan, although it's not the personal theory of who Cubone is that I subscribe to. Next we have Growlithe, cute puppy. Magnemite, it's just a magnet. Also, when I was younger, I really liked magnets. I played with them all the time. Wartortle is the bottom of the first 9 Pokemon, which is interesting to me because it was my first ever evolution, because my first ever Pokemon was a Squirtle that I named Squirt. And so this was the first time that everything ever evolved was when my Squirtle evolved into a Wartortle. But I don't remember it, and so it's not memorable, and therefore she's down here. Next we have Vileplume. Vileplume is honestly just a really pretty flower. All 3 in this line are wonderful. Then we got Machop, and one of my favorite things about Machop is that I didn't know it was a fighting type. I thought it was the same thing as Geodude, so like a ground rock type kind of thing. And so I would always use Water Gun on it, which was effective, it worked. But you know, I don't know if it was the most effective, but he just looks like a little rock friend, you know? Then we have Geodude right after, and honestly, I don't know. Both of these kind of the same in my head. Next we have Weedle. Weedle's a cute little kitty pillar. Dugtrio, we got the 3-headed thing. Here's Vulpix, which is the cutest of the little puppies in my opinion, like Ponyta, Growlithe, Vulpix, Eevee. Although Eevee's ranked higher than this, which we haven't gotten to Eevee yet, but I think Vulpix is definitely the cutest of them. Machoke was just honestly pretty cool. Kabutops, great Skelly boy. And then we have Charmeleon, the second of the middle tier evolutions for the first 9. Then we have Duo, and then we have Ivysaur right behind Charmeleon. And the reason why Ivysaur is rated the highest is just because in Super Smash Bros. You get to become an Ivysaur as Pokemon trainer, and I just think that's wonderful. Next we have Butterfree, pretty butterfly. Kadabra, this whole line is really great. This is definitely the weakest of the 3 though. Oh, and now we have our first like special, like not real Pokemon, but just kind of wanted to include them. And it's MissingNo, which if you don't know is like a glitch that you can get if you encounter a Pokemon that's outside of the range of Pokemon that they have sprites for. They show you this guy. And so, you know, it's really fun, really cool, glitchy, but honestly, it's not that cool. And so she's just kind of right in the middle of the pack for me. Next we have Rattata, which is a cute little rat, but I didn't really have too many associations with the Rattatas. Jolteon is my least favorite of the 3 evolutions in this game. And that's mainly because of the fact that it's kind of like the least friendly. It's like all spiky and electrocutey egg. Next we have Golem. Golem was one of the Pokemon, as I said before, I was so disappointed I couldn't get because I couldn't trade, but I just loved the fact that it was just a big rock. I loved rocks growing up. Next we have Zubat, which is iconic because, you know, you go to Mount Moon for the first time and there's just a million Zubats that you have to get through. Muck is just a grimy boy. Poliwrath, this whole line is just my favorite. I just love the little squiggle pattern, the little, what are they, tadpoles? I just thought they were the cutest things. Amistar was my actually in the group that I used to beat the Elite Four for the first time. And I thought that Omastar was wonderful and was really happy about picking it over Kabutops. Next we have Clefable, and then Horsey, the prettiest of the pretties. Look at those big eyes. And then we have Wigglytuff, who has even bigger eyes, but I still think that Wigglytuff's less cute, but I still would pick it over a Horsey. Next we have Porygon, which is honestly like the strangest Pokemon. Like, why did they include this in the game? It just feels out of place because everything else is like an animal and Porygon is literally just like digital something. I don't know, it's weird. Next we have Coughing. Next we have Ponyta, who's the highest rated of all the little dogs because it's on fire. Now look at Ekans' mouth and tell me that it doesn't deserve this spot. Tentacle's chillin', just kind of chill, love to Tentacool. And then we finally get to the Pidgey. I love Pidgey so much. In fact, I don't know if you recall, but when I did my last subscriber video, like milestone video, it was about pigeons because I love pigeons so much. So, you know, that's why Pidgey's all the way up here. Next we have Eevee, classic. Staryu, also very pretty. Poliwhirl, look at he's doing this, and he's got the big eyes. He's so good. Next we have Venomoth. Charizard, the least rated of the third evolutions for the first 3 Pokemon, or for the starters. Yeah, I don't know. So because of the fact that I chose Squirtle for my first ever playthrough, I actually just never encountered Charizard really at all. And so it just didn't leave too much of an impression on me compared to the other 2. Next we have Vaporeon, which is just a evolution. I like it. I like all the evolutions. Next we have Alakazam with his spoons, ready to do some psychic damage to us. And then we have Flareon, which is the top rated of the 3 because this is the one that I picked when I was deciding to evolve my Eevee in my first gen game. Now we have Big Snake Rock Boy, who is always the fun friend at the party to encounter. Lickitung is just kind of crazy, and I just like the fact that I like all the pink Pokemon because they're pink. Pink's like always been my favorite, so. Next we have Marowak, who's this high because of the fact that it's what you encounter as the big boss of Lavender Town. And I just really liked everything about Lavender Town, and this to me is like the climax of Lavender Town was Marowak. Next you have Machamp. Machamp and the Elite Four, let me tell you, every time I went against Machamp, I always was terrified that I was gonna get one-hit KO'd. I don't know if they even had a move to one-hit KO me. I just know that I was terrified about it because I was like, it's gonna happen. Then we have Voltorb, exploding Pokemon, and actually, I just was looking through my Pokeboxes in Gen 1, and I named this guy Suicide, which is a great name for because all he does is self-destruct, but you know, whatever. Then we have Paris, the cutie patootie, with the little mushy friend. I just loved catching these. I think I was looking through, and I think I had 4 of them in my Pokeboxes. Next we have Shelder, who's a cute little clam, Bellsprout. This whole string of the ones is just like Pokemon that I think are really cute. Oh, now we have the Ghost, which is, you know, the Marowak from before, but in its hidden form. And I just really like the fact that they added a little ghost friend. Next we have Kabuto, which is just also extremely cute. Grimer's extremely cute. Drowsy, I'm surprised is this low on the list because Drowsy was one of my favorite Pokemon, but in reality it makes sense because what it evolves into is actually what I used, whereas Drowsy is just what I caught it at. And I know that the Poke description for Drowsy is more iconic than that for Hypno. I think it's like, likes to eat nightmares or something like that. Likes to inflict them and then eat them for nutrition. But either way, in the end, Drowsy's just Drowsy to me. Next we have Pikachu, who's iconic, and I'm surprised that she's this high on the list. I would have thought she'd be lower, but I guess she is really iconic, and she is a really cute Pokemon. And you know, I've got my Pikachu friend right here, so can't deny the Pikachu. Next we have Lapras, which was the Pokemon that I used to surf around on, and I really liked Lapras. I think also she was in my first group to beat the Elite Four with. Next we have a Chansey. My Chansey was named Jiminy Picky, and when I say that, I mean it was J-I, and then the M-N of like the Pokemon. In the first gen, you could specify Pokemon by having 2 characters. One of them was a PK character, and the second one was an MN character. And so I had called Chansey J-I-N-M-P-K, so it was Jiminy Pickety, Jiminy Pickety, and I don't know why, but I love that. Next we have Dragonite, which was always the coolest of Pokemon. I had one in Gen 1, but I always just remembered going up against it when it was like with Lance's party, and just thinking like, oh, this is the biggest of the bads, and like it was like the big test before the final big test. Lance honestly was sometimes harder than the actual champion in that game, so it made sense that this was kind of like iconic to me. Now we've got our Blastoise. which sadly, even though it was my first Pokemon, I even when I played Pokemon Red did several Hall of Fame runs with just a Blastoise to get it to level 100. Like, I just grinded with just the Blastoise over and over again. And like sometimes I had other Pokemon in my party, but often I would just solo it with just the Blastoise as like a fun little added challenge where it was like could not die or else I lost. And so, you know, my little friend Squirt, sorry that you're only in 35th place, but I guess there's better Pokemon than you. Next we have Articuno. I really liked Articuno. Next we have Clefairy, who's just, look at her, she's just smiling and having a good time. Then we have Moltres, and Moltres is the saddest story, and this is why it is above the Articuno, is that when I found Moltres, I killed it. I went up to it and I killed it. And I remember thinking like, oh, I need to reset. But then I looked at it and I was like, shit, I've been playing for 6 hours. And so if I reset, it was going to be miserable, like regaining those 6 hours. And I think I'd caught other Pokemon that I didn't want to get rid of. And so I remember how difficult of a decision it was to save the game at that point. But yeah, no, I just killed it, so I never had a Moltres. Next is Zapdos, and it was my first legendary Pokemon ever, and I just remember walking up to it and like having learned about the 3 legendary birds from an NPC and being like, oh, what's this thing here? Pressing A and then it doing a Pokemon battle and being so excited. And then it was the legendary bird and I just threw a Master Ball at it immediately. And so she's kind of just rated all the way up here because my first ever legendary bird and just wasted a Master Ball on her. At least I didn't throw the Master Ball at like a Weedle or something. Then we have Charmander. Charmander's really cute, let's be honest. Very cute Pokemon, but she's the lowest of the 3 starters because she's the only starter that I never had, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Next we have Caterpie, who's just a cute little kitty pillar. Ammonite is the fossil Pokemon that I chose and never regretted picking that Helix fossil. She's beautiful and I really liked her pattern. It reminded me of these things that were called Matya in Greece, which is like the eye of the sea. It's little snails when they die sometimes would leave a sedimented little circle thing with a spiral pattern on it, and we called them Matya. And Ammonite reminded me of them, so really liked those. Next we have Slowbro, who's just so cute. Now we have Venusaur, who I like to call Lex Luthor in my head because my second favorite Pokemon game of all time was Pokemon Red Mystery Dungeon, and I chose Bulbasaur as my starter for that one. And so I always associate Venusaur with like some of the best times I've ever had under the name Lex Luthor. And so yeah, she's up there at spot 26. Next is Gloom. I love Gloom, little flower friend. Then we have Jigglypuff, little cute friend. I remember approaching Mewtwo and just thinking that it was the coolest thing in the world, like in the, I think it was, what was it called, like Victory Cave? And I just remember walking up to Mewtwo in its little cave that was like the post-game cave, and like walking up to him and being like, holy shit, this is the coolest thing ever. What is this thing? I didn't know there was another legendary Pokemon. And so I remember that I only had 10 Ultra Balls and like a Pokeball on me. And I remember all of the Ultra Balls failed. And then I finally threw it and caught it in a Pokeball, and it was the most excited I'd ever been. Next we have Gyarados, which is, you know, iconic little dragon friend. Bulbasaur, obviously loved my Lex Luthor. This is how she started out, so this is how she's appearing on the list. And she's honestly just such a cute starter as well. Next we have Oddish, and as you can see, the Oddish line just placed really high on this list. Just look at how cute they are though. Next is Haunter. Here's my Haunter friend. And Haunter, look at that smile. This whole line is great. Squirtle, my first ever Pokemon. You gotta love the Squirtle. Next we have Tangela, which is just a little ball of hair, and I always loved that. Next we have Abra, and I really liked Abra because it could teleport, and I just was like, oh my god, a move that's not an HM that can actually impact the overworld game. And I thought that was really cool. That and Dig, which is why Diglett's next on the list. Next up is Mew, which I think is wonderful, and I actually used a Mew in my Pokemon Yellow challenge where I only used a Pikachu as an HM slave, but you can't get her normally in the game, and so the fact that she was so rare that you couldn't even get her without glitches just added to the value of her in my mind, and I just was like, yeah, Mew's great. Next we have a Dratini, which is a little friend. Psyduck, the confused boy with the headaches that are explosive, has to go up here. Slowpoke also has to go up here. Is just so derpy, and you gotta love the derp. Next we have Poliwag, which is the tadpole friend. Of course, the bottom of the top 10, not like the most iconic of Pokemon, but still one of my favorites of all time. Snorlax, I love Snorlax so much that I almost spent $90 getting a Snorlax beanbag. And then we have a Dragonair. Dragonair is a special Pokemon to me because of the fact that once upon a time, somebody told me that I looked like, or that if they had to pick a Pokemon in the 151 Pokemon that I corresponded with, it would be Dragonair because of its like elegance and sleekness and beauty. And I was like, oh, that's so kind. And so that's why Dragonair is like, has a nice place in my heart. Next we have Venonat. And I think part of the reason why I like Venonat so much is because of Pokemon Puzzle League. Because the Venonat is one of the Pokemon and I think it's one of the Pokemon and it just makes the cutest noises. Now we have Ghastly, who's also on this shirt down below. And just all of the ghost Pokemon are my favorite. Gengar, obviously, has to go all the way up top. Gengar was one of the sickest Pokemon in the world. And love this boy so much. Now we got Magikarp, who knows Splash. And if you haven't seen the video, there's like an old 2000s video. I think it's called like Magikarp's a Badass or something like that, but it's all about like Magikarp having like diamond flippers and like being able to murder you in an instant because it can swim faster than the speed of sound or something like that, and how they're like taking up like 80% of the Pokemon world because of the fact that water covers a lot of it and they're in every body of water in all of the games. So yeah, no, Magikarp's just so iconic. I love Magikarp. Now we have Hypno, and in my Pokemon Red game, I had called my Hypno Bad Dreams because of the description that Drowsy had. But, you know, I used Hypno all the time. It was, like, my favorite Pokemon to use because I really liked all of the Psychic type moves, and it was definitely my strongest Pokemon, even stronger than probably my Blastoise. Next, we have Ditto. I'm surprised Ditto is number 2 on this list, but yeah, Ditto is just, you know, one of those Pokemon. It can only learn Transform, right? And that's part of the appeal of it, because since it can learn Transform, it's one of the 2 Pokemon that can use every single move in the game. Yeah, Ditto is just such a good Pokemon. And then finally, you probably guessed it by now, we have Cubone. Cubone's my favorite Pokemon because, you know, it's like the sad Pokemon, the lonely Pokemon. I had this guidebook. It was like a Pokemon guide or something like that, and it talked through the first 151 Pokemon and described them and stuff. And it called Cubone the lonely Pokemon. And so growing up, I was always vibing with Cubone, and I really liked Cubone. And so, you know, of course, Cubone's gonna be the top of my list. And yeah, so that's my list. That's the ranking of all 151 Pokemon. And I can't believe that it's over. That took me about 12 hours to make those slides. I don't know if you noticed, but like all the sprites, all of the custom coloring of the titles, the gradient of the numbers, that just took forever. I originally wanted to make a tier list with all the Pokemon, but you saw how crowded in the Pokemon were. And so there's no way that I would do that. Like, look at how many of these Pokemon there are. I actually, I went ahead and did it anyways. We're going to hide my camera for a second so you could see the list in all of its glory. And, you know, I made the S tiers like nice and bright, and I honestly think it's kind of funny, like how I didn't even put Machamp in A tier, for instance. Like, I definitely don't agree with this tier list at all, but this is just how it could fit going in numeric order on my list that I made. And like Blastoise is in B tier, like what? And Poliwrath is in C tier. I guess that's fine. I don't know, but either way, yeah, I really had a lot of fun making this video, so I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching, and thank you for subscribing and for supporting the channel, and, you know, who knows when the next subscriber milestone will be. Anyways, thanks so much. Bye.